I think my favorite guitar players are rhythm guitar players.
Izzy
And it's,
Stradlin.
Malcolm, probably the fastest right hand in the West would be Brian Baker. I've never seen a guy,
Dude,
downstroke chunks. So like, I mean,
he's so fun to watch.
first time I met Brian was I was, oh my God, I think I was 16, no, 15. And a band that I was in was opening up for Minor Threat at a place out in the valley in Chatsworth.
Yeah.
And I think it was the second time Minor Threat had been here. And the band that I was in was for all intent, it was I don't know if you remember that clothing company, Lip Service. They had like it was a hip clothing company at the time. I think they were the first people to actually make like tight jeans that weren't like Levi's that were breathable. He basically went over to London and ripped off the stretchy jean idea, took it back to California, and then every person in LA was wearing it. Anyhow, that guy came from a hardcore punk rock background. So the band that I was in was a band called America's Hardcore. It was basically the California version of Minor Threat, except I told the guy straight up, I'm like, well, I drink. I'm 16. I don't give a fuck. I drink. I have a fake ID. I'm going to drink. And he's like, okay, just don't say anything. So we get this big show opening up for Minor Threat. And we're hanging out by our van, and Brian's hanging out by his, and he walks right by our van, and I had a brown bag, and he walks by and he's like, hey, got another one of those? And I'm like, oh, really? And of course I was like, well, I do have another one, but I'm not going to give it to you. But so we started chatting from then. We
You want
started
to sip?
chatting. Yeah, I was like, you want to sip? Yep. But it was just funny that what I mean, because honestly, that was 84, 83. 4 years later, 5 years later, we were in a recording studio together. Recording an album. It was strange to think about that. In the I don't know if it was necessarily coincidence, but
Synchronicities.
synchronicity. I got really lucky because being born and raised in LA and starting off playing jazz drums lent itself to playing in every punk rock band that needed a drummer. Because having the jazz background, from 12 to 13 years old, you figure out song structure pretty quick. Punk rock songs, well, they're great. They're not that hard to figure out. I mean, if
Mm.
there's a third part, then you're talking about like, everybody's like, oh, stop the clock. Wait a second, third part. But so that's what got me a lot of gigs. On top of it, you know, I had access to a car.
Mm.
Old skateboard friends of mine had a station wagon, so they were always looking for some way to get out of the house. We were 16. Let's throw drums in my car, go play a gig, or they'd take me to rehearsal, or what have you. And so I got really lucky with that, and I played in probably I think there's a lot of bands that are saying that I played with them that are coming back. I don't remember, and I feel bad because I'm like
Boy,
I was
that's a
like
lot of
literally like
brown bags.
man, I played with you where? I'm like, oh my God, I had no idea. Did I record anything for you guys or anything? And they're like, oh, we did a demo. I'm like, well, okay.